Hi, I'm here with Craig Schmitt. Craig is a recognized leader in the planning and design of sports, entertainment, and hospitality venues. As a hands-on principal and project manager, he is actively involved through all aspects of project development, from programming and concept design to design development and construction administration. From his decades of professional experience, he proficiently understands the planning stages and drivers of design behind live entertainment facilities: performance production, operational efficiency, safety, revenue generation, and optimizing the patron experience. Craig joined the firm, which is Ewing Cole, in 2001 and became a principal in 2005. And I've known Craig for a long time, and because I am sports illiterate, I assumed that I needed to go to a professional to understand more about how the sports world is dealing with COVID and work from home. And thank you, Craig.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's been super fun to catch up with you before we started recording this. So it's great to see you and talk with you. So thank you for inviting me to do this.
So how has this affected the sports world?
Well, the sports world has been rocked hard by this, and anybody who's a sports fan would know that, because of social distancing, because of the inability for masses to gather together, sports, live entertainment, any type of live entertainment has really been almost non-existent since the pandemic, and it's only just now beginning to resume. It's been really interesting to watch how the four major sports leagues, hockey, basketball, baseball, and football, have handled this, and how they've tried to kind of salvage a season this year. And they each kind of took a different approach. And so you had basketball, who was in the middle of their playoffs when the pandemic started, and they had to shut down their season and then figure out a way to resume it and finish it. You had hockey also in the middle of their season and had a similar, dilemma. And then you had baseball, who hadn't yet started. It was about to start. Their baseball season starts in early April. And then you had football that doesn't start until late summer. So they had time to kind of wait and watch and see what others were doing. But so the NBA implemented a bubble for themselves. So they brought all the teams down to one location in Walt Disney World, found a place that they had enough hotel rooms, enough space to set up basketball courts to basically conduct a playoff in a bubble where the players were not allowed to leave, and only a select amount of staff from the teams were allowed to actually enter that bubble and be there. And the same thing with the media. Only a limited number of media were there to be able to telecast it. And in fact, a lot of the regular sports play-by-play guys actually did the broadcasting, the play-by-play from afar, from New York or Connecticut or wherever they were, just by watching it on a screen.
Okay.
Hockey, so everybody in the NBA, all I forget how many teams there are, sequestered together under one roof, so to speak. Hockey did something similar, only they had two bubbles. So they had all the teams either in Edmonton or Toronto, and they all were, similar to Disney. They were all kind of sequestered in these two hotel locations. They had a little bit more freedom, or maybe that's not the right way to say it, whereas literally the NBA players were all on the Disney campus in Edmonton and Toronto. At least they were within the city. So technically they were allowed to leave their bubble, but they weren't supposed to. But that's how they sort of kept it safe. Baseball then, and by the way, basketball has just finished their finals. Hockey is just finished their finals. They both got through almost unscathed without players getting COVID. A few did, but they were able to kind of finish the season. Baseball then decided to do something altogether different, where they sort of created bubbles within their own stadium, and they weren't allowed to have any fans at the stadiums, but they're playing the teams are actually traveling by plane or bus to the other venues. And they're playing each other, but playing it with no fans and with very limited staff. And then now football is, just started. The season just started there in week 4. And they're doing something similar to baseball. They're really hopeful that soon they'll be able to allow, well, actually they already have started allowing fans into their stadiums on a very limited basis. One of the things that we did right out of the gate soon after this pandemic happened was our sports clients were calling us saying, if we have to maintain social distancing, how many people can we get in our stadiums? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And so we started to do these little, we sort of formed a little internal sports sports center of excellence to try to figure some of these out. To keep people 6 feet apart in the Seeing Bowl. It's a shocking number, whereas like say basically the best we could get was, no matter whether it's a 20,000 seat arena or a 65,000 seat football stadium, the most you can get is like 20% capacity at keeping people 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
So a lot of teams are like, if I can only get 20% of the people in the stands, it's not worth me opening the building and having all this staff to serve the fans if I'm only getting 20% revenue on hot dogs and beer and tickets. So it's kind of been this really interesting dilemma they have. And of course, it's more than just, okay, I can put people in the stands 6 feet apart, but how do people arrive? I mean, usually people just arrive all at the same time. So they've been doing timed entry into the venues. If you're a ticket holder, you got a specific time, you got to show up at the gate and go through. Of course, they have all the protocol with taking your temperature and all that business. But then how do you get to your seat and not cross the path of someone else? How do you go to the bathroom without doing that? How do you get a hot dog? So it's just many multiple layers of levels of things to think about, which is why it's been so challenging. But the NFL, the NFL has been one of the first to actually start having fans back in the stadium. College football's about to start doing the same thing. In fact, they've already started as well. But anyway, it's a long-winded answer to your question. But
no, that's great, because of course I didn't know anything about it. So now I'm educated also. Well, I mean, because we both grew up in Pittsburgh, but obviously I was not allowed to enter back again. But anyway, because of no, I've only been, I mean, in Pittsburgh. So you worked on the new stadium in Pittsburgh, right? So I'd only been to Three Rivers, and I never went to a football game there, just one baseball game. And the Civic Arena, I never went for hockey. I only went for concerts. Yeah, those of them which are now demolished.
Right. Neither of those buildings exist anymore. Three Rivers Stadium or the hockey, or the Igloo, as they called it. You were deprived of sports as a youngster. So
well, there was a baseball field across the street from our house.
Okay. So I was blessed to at one time when I was working for a firm in Pittsburgh get to be heavily involved, one of the senior architects on the building of PNC Park for the Pirates. Unbelievable experience, especially to get to design your own home team's ballpark. It was a massive endeavor. 3 years of design, a year and a half of design and three plus years of construction. So it's a huge undertaking.
And then the separation, right? The separation of the stadiums where, it used to be, right, that I mean, for younger people, they might not know that, before it was just, you had one stadium, you would play football and, baseball and alternate those, where then they decided to totally separate them.
That's right. Yeah. Once upon a time, cities couldn't afford to have two separate stadiums for the two different sports, football and baseball. But the economics of Major League sports, particularly with TV contracts, has become such that it did make sense to have separate stadiums and teams could afford it. Or it's actually, I should back up and say the teams demanded to have their own separate facilities. What often happens is the teams look to those cities to actually fund those stadiums, which has, of course, become somewhat controversial in how they're funded. But, why should
they have to be a good team, I think. You wouldn't have. That was one of my big. I had a conversation with one of my friends from back there, and about the whole Chargers thing, and I said, well, I've never really followed the Chargers. I said, because I don't really consider them to be a football team, because I grew up in Pittsburgh. That's my football team, and I think the Steelers probably have a bigger following out here than people follow the Chargers, seriously.
Wow.
So yeah, oh yeah, I was like, so then when they wanted this, the stadium, and then they weren't, everybody said, no, we're not funding it for you, then they left town. And my friend was like, I can't imagine the Steelers like, leaving town. And I'm like, well, the Steelers wouldn't leave town. I mean, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's some team owners don't care what city they're playing in. They just want to, they want to make money and have a team. But there's other people, team owners like the Rooney family who've owned the Steelers forever, that they're just the quality people, and they would never, I think, betray Pittsburgh and pull out of the city. And the city loves them as equally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not to slam Carson, but if you'd rather go to Carson instead of San Diego, then you're right.
Yeah, we interviewed for that. We interviewed for that project, actually.
Oh, you did? Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. We interviewed for that one, for the same with the Minnesota Vikings and also the Atlanta Falcons. All three of those we were runner up to do. But yeah. So yeah, I've been blessed in my career. Not only did I get to work, be involved with the building of PNC Park for the Pirates, but then shortly thereafter, in fact, almost immediately after, I got wooed to come down and join Ewing Cole in Philadelphia, and they had just landed the contract to do the Philadelphia Phillies baseball stadium. For me, it was like deja vu all over again. I had just spent 4 years building a baseball stadium in Pittsburgh, and now I'm going to do it all over again in Philadelphia. And that was a wonderful experience. I was able to use a lot of what I learned, of course, in Pittsburgh and apply it to Philadelphia. So I was one of the senior project managers on that project. And then we had a 1-year pause. And then we won the commission to design the New York Jets, New York Giants football stadium in the Meadowlands of New Jersey, and got to design that 82,000 seat stadium. That one was a 5-year project in the making. Yeah. So I literally, unbelievable streak for me to go, 4 years on PNC Park, 4 years on Phillies baseball stadium, and 5 years on MetLife Stadium for the New York Giants, New York Jets. So what is that, 10 straight years of working on 3 major sports stadiums in this country was quite a run for me, and exhausting, needless to say. Those projects are so demanding. So I was actually happy to finish finally, and actually take a break. Not have a fourth one right on the heels of that. So I'm back to some smaller projects right now. So
yeah, I can't even imagine when people start talking about like thousands and thousands of square feet. I can't even imagine. Though I do like Petco Park. I mean, I like Petco Park. I mean, because I can do other things besides watch sports. But I mean, it's funny because I'm like, yeah, I mean, I kind of say like, I don't do sports, but I mean, actually, like, there's a lot of things. I mean, I like to swim. I can't swim now, right? Unless you have your own pool, you can't really, we can't really swim. And then I was thinking, I can still walk and hike, but I mean, even some of the things are closed down, with that, and a lot of the state parks, national parks have been closed or have limited visitation. So, and then one of the things that I had put in the blog was that we had gone to, the first time that we met, and we went camping at Joshua Tree. So I have something about the blog in that too. You guys will have to look at the show notes, but just about, and so my daughter and I went over probably like, I think January of maybe December or January. And we went over there, and I was thinking like, why? I said, gosh, I'm trying to think of why there was limited access then too. And it was because it was a federal shutdown. But the California, but they were still letting people in. They would still let people in to the park. Yeah, it was kind of on the down low. So they did let us in, and we kind of went, but you couldn't camp there, but we were staying at we were staying in a geodesic dome and another thing. So yeah. So that's, that's yeah. So, so I'm going to start with the questions, which, they're pretty easygoing questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So what are your first recollections of experiencing architecture?
Yeah, I love this question. It really made me, thank you for saying it in advance so I can give it some thought. It really was fun to think about, to reflect back on where did that impulse come from. And it's interesting, if I sort of trace my steps, it sort of feels like perhaps I was destined to become an architect because, really, so reportedly, of course, I can't remember this, but reportedly, I was the one lone kid in the corner playing with the blocks in kindergarten. And I remember my mother always told me, oh, yeah, the kindergarten always commented about how you were always off by yourself playing with the blocks in the corner. And that was like your thing. I don't remember that. But later, what age I was, maybe 3 or 4, I remember fondly remember building forts with blankets and pillows from the couch in the living room or down in the basement. And my other brothers and sisters, we'd build forts all the time. We loved it.
Oh,
We'd
yeah.
have sleepovers and we'd build a
Yeah.
fort and sleep in them, right?
Yep.
And then I remember also an incident when I was in 4th grade. We got to do this like overnight camp for a weekend outside of Pittsburgh. And we had this one exercise one day where we were escorted or we went out into the woods as a small group of 10 or 12, but we were told to spread out and each find a small space within the woods to kind of sit and reflect on what you saw. And so the idea was you were supposed to just be quiet and observe nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I spent more time creating a space within the woods than I did necessarily observing, birds or things around me. I was like picking up sticks and I was like putting the sticks together side by side and creating like a little wall or a little enclosure. And I remember spending most of my time doing that. And I thought, wow, like now that I look back on that, I'm like, well, there I was being an architect, perhaps.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
later, when I was a young teenager, my brother and I convinced my father to fund a tree fort in the backyard. And so he actually got a friend who was a carpenter and we went and bought some supplies. And together we built this 2-story tree house at the bottom of our backyard. And I remember just how fun it was to be a part of that, but also just, sleeping in it on sleep outs on the summer nights,
Mm-hmm.
just sort of experiencing that sort of crude structure. And then lastly, I guess I have to say that James Bond movies, like the villain or villainess or whatever, always lived in these spectacular cliffside dwellings or these homes, clad in gold or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember being so sort of inspired by those, like, wow, like what an incredible place that is, right? And so maybe I was subconsciously influenced by James Bond movies too. I don't know, but so there's your answer.
Yeah. Well, one of Margit, she does hospitality, and she said that it was my gosh, why am I not thinking the Jetsons? That she was inspired by the Jetsons. Yeah.
Right. Those are so cool, right?
Yeah. I don't know what I mean. I don't know what I mean. I know that I definitely. I mean, I always drew, and yeah. I mean, you can you paint, and I always kind of felt like, I mean, I was always drawing and painting, and and then when I started drafting, probably I think it was in the 8th grade, I think, and that and then I kind of like said, oh, maybe I want to be an architect, and I was kind of kept drafting from that point on, but yeah.
No, I remember taking technical drafting in 8th grade. I think it was required, that in woodshop. And
yeah.
I remember doing the technical drafting with the straight edge and the pencils, and I loved it. And I don't know why I loved it. I just loved I don't know. And I was natural at it. And it was really, that stuck with me when it came time for, talking to your career counselor about what do you want to do? I'm like, She's like, do you want to do science? I'm like, no. And do you want to do biology? No. Do you want to do engineering? I'm like, I don't think so. And they're like, how about architecture? I'm like, I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because you don't really know what architecture is when you're in high school, right? I mean, you don't really know what you do. But I'm like, hey, if I get to use those kind of technical pencils in a straight edge, sure, I'd like that. So yeah.
Well, we had a box. We had a box. It was like the career box, and then you would like look in it, and I was like, "Oh, look, here's like I could be a drafter because my math skills are bad, and then I could be an architect or an artist." And I was like thinking, well, I don't know whether I'll be able to make any money as an artist, so I'll go for the architect, and then if I don't, then the fallback will be drafting or something. So and I mean, I have, even though I've never passed college algebra. But and I've said that in numerous other blogs with people, so I don't officially have my degree. But yeah, yeah. So anyway, now that my phone's, what are 3 classic buildings that you like and why?
Okay. So the first one that popped into my head is probably on most architects' top 3 lists. It's Falling Water by Frank Lloyd Wright, and it's I think it's been awarded numerous prestigious awards. I think it was recently called one of the top 2 or 3 examples of architecture in this century or something like that. But it's an extraordinary building. It's not, I lucky enough to grow up in Pittsburgh and have it be only, a 50-minute car drive from Pittsburgh. So I've been there numerous times in different seasons. It's always interesting to see it in different seasons, but it's just one of those buildings that just stops you in your tracks. It's beauty. It's like no other structure you've ever seen before, right? It's not 4 walls and a roof.
Yeah.
It's attachment. It's placement within nature. It's respect for nature. It's the inhabiting a space that connects you to nature. The views, the light, I remember walking into the living room, and there's a boulder that sticks out of the floor that becomes sort of the hearth to the fireplace, and how that was such an important part of Frank Lloyd Wright's program, was that the hearth was always like the center of the house, and how that boulder became the centering anchor to the whole house. And just how amazed I was that someone was daring enough to actually let a boulder stick through the floor of a house. It's the architecture is timeless. It looks as modern today as it did when it was built in 1931.
I mean, yeah, it really does. Yeah, there's no, and I didn't see it until until after Kelly was born. And I think that we went back there for a wedding and we met with you guys. And so, and then that was the time that we went and saw it for the first time. But, we weren't with you, but we were with friends. But, it was just, it's just incredible. And that was the first time that, and really before that, I had never really thought about, Frank Lloyd Wright. And, the architecture that I saw was like the architecture in downtown Pittsburgh. So it's kind of, Richardsonian, and, the courthouse definitely is, it's kind of very influential, but, with all the brick, but then, you see Falling Water and it's totally, not of that, even though, I had been to Ohio Pile before. And so I don't know what, I don't think my parents just didn't take me there, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, building number 2, one that came to mind was Frank Gehry's Disney Pavilion, and of course, a completely different style of architecture, quite obvious. Completely different approach to space making. But I think that building, I used to live in Los Angeles. That's how we became friends. I've been back, actually that building wasn't there when we lived there together, Michelle.
No, it wasn't.
I've been back and seen it a couple of times, and it is a remarkable building. It's, I sort of describe it as a sculpture, really. It's an inhabitable sculpture, and it clearly is inspired by music and by movement. Its skin, the shiny skin, titanium skin, kind of celebrates the Los Angeles sunshine, and the sky and light. The interior is this wood-clad music chamber that, with these sort of organic shapes that almost feel like you're inside, like a wood instrument.
Yeah.
It's in fact, yeah. I mean, it's a stunning example of architecture. It's just another thing, like, who would have thought? Some people describe Frank Gehry's work as like taking a piece of paper and crumpling it up, and it's like that's it. And that's what that building looks like, almost quite literally. And who would have thunk you could make a structure like that, and that it would be interesting to inhabit. And the only problem I have with Frank Gehry's work is I think his work has a time and a place for certain types of buildings. And I think some people try to hire him to do a building that really shouldn't be hiring him, because not all his buildings are successful, I think, but that one is very successful. And inspiring.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's nice to have, a public building by Frank Gehry, who to me always seems very, very LA, right? I mean, especially like being on the West Side and, his house, and then, the Binoculars building, and, the other what's the one that kind of looks like it's an abstracted lifeguard tower that's there in Venice Beach.
In Venice Beach, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then the other house, which it's the house that I think it's clad in lead. We went to see it on a house tour one time, but it's actually, I mean, a lot of times I think people are like, oh, the scale is off or whatever, but that house, it's a residence. And I think in all the photographs, it looked like it like at such a larger scale that it wouldn't be conducive to residential architecture, but it actually was like very, very, residential scale when we took the tour of it. So
yeah. I mean, I think when you look at the history of architecture, for sure, I mean, Frank Lloyd Wright pushed the boundaries way beyond what was ever done before, and I think Frank Gehry has done the same in his career. And all the buildings that you've mentioned, including starting with his own house, which was really almost his laboratory. Using chain link on the outside of a building, who would have thought to do that, right?
Yeah, and in that neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So my third building, I gave you a couple of examples, more than three, but I think to choose one, I think the third example of a building that has inspired me is Sagrada Familia by Gaudi. Actually, any building by Gaudi, frankly. I got to visit.
Yeah.
I took a trip to Barcelona last fall, and wow, what a city, by the way. Love that city.
Yeah.
But the Gaudi work was definitely something I wanted to see while I was there, and it did not disappoint. It's so incredible. Sagrada Familia is breathtaking. It stands out in the city. To think about when it was started and how it dominated the city back when it was first constructed, and think that it's still being built today is sort of mind-boggling.
I saw it in 1987.
Wow.
Yeah. You couldn't even go into it at that point,
Oh, really?
I saw it with Neil.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I have it. I took a 360 panoramic with my phone on the inside on a late October afternoon with the sun streaming through the rose windows, and it's breathtaking. The light through the color, the stained glass windows is unreal, and it's just a magical space. It's in the true sense of religious architecture to inspiring. But also, I mean, what's so fascinating for anybody who doesn't know, any layperson who doesn't know how he went about developing the shapes of the towers was, as we know as architects, we learned in school, is that he basically took strings and suspended lead weights from them, and the shapes from holding two string ends and a weight at the bottom inverted became the towers of the church. And it's sort of like,
I didn't know that, Craig.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know that?
I didn't. I just
So when you go there now, they have this space that's a sort of a museum to the build, the designing of it, And they actually have a scale model. I'm sure it's not the original, but they have a scale model where it's really clever how they did it. They have all the strings tied to one another, draped with different weights, creating these catenary curves. And then underneath it, they have a mirror. And so when you walk up to it, you look into the mirror, you see the reflection. So you actually see the inverted structure.
Okay.
It's really quite interesting. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So, in fact, it's on my screensaver right now. I was so inspired by that building. So,
is that 3? It is 3. I guess because you had a fourth one. Because you had a fourth one, right? Do you want to say the fourth one?
Fourth was Philip Johnson's Glass House.
Okay.
Probably on other people's lists as well, but another.
I don't think anybody's put the. I don't think anybody's put the Glass House.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of another genre-defining, example of architecture. Pushing the boundaries of what we think of as inhabitable space, particularly a house.
Mm-hmm.
Who would think that you could potentially live in a house that was all glass walls? And he of course, Mies van der Rohe also did a house very similar, and there's a lot of controversy about who came up with the idea first, but nonetheless. The result is quite magnificent. It's so poetic. It's this beautiful, just highly thoughtful design. Every detail is thought through. It's just a minimalist glass box, precious glass box. The setting of the New Canaan property that it was on is magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
It was obviously meant to be set in the woods where there was privacy, so you didn't have to necessarily always worry about someone looking through your window.
Yeah.
But it's just so beautiful. It's beautiful. Like I said, it looks like as modern today as it did when it was built.
Mm-hmm.
Just very inspiring. Yeah. So it's.
I've never seen it. I've never.
You haven't?
No, I've never been to Connecticut or Massachusetts.
No. Oh wow, Connecticut's a beautiful. Well, they're both beautiful in their different ways, but Connecticut has these. The stonework in Connecticut is these rolling stone walls between properties in certain parts of the state are just magnificent, beautiful. Yeah.
Okay. My third question, Craig. What do you like about being an architect?
So that's, wow, it's a loaded question, right? So, I've always been drawn to art. And, to me, architecture is sort of the ultimate art form because the end product is something that we inhabit, right? Something that we live in, we work in, we worship in, perhaps. That it brings this additional human element to it. It's not just art for my sake, and then maybe someone likes my art and hangs it on a wall from a painter or a sculpture or something like that, but it's something that you're creating for somebody else that then hopefully enhances their daily life, right? It influences how they think. It might inspire them.
It might, the inspiration.
It might comfort them, whatever. And also, in particular with sports architecture, I think the thing that I really thrive on is the fact that these buildings are places of community and places where community come together to celebrate something together.
Yeah.
And, one of the most rewarding moments of my career, frankly, was having been involved so heavily and emotionally in building the Philadelphia Phillies baseball stadium, and then living here and watching the team rise to success, ultimately end up in the World Series. And I was there on Game 6 when they won the World Series. And in a city that was starved for a championship, the Phillies hadn't won a World Series since 1980. And the place went bonkers and people were crying. And I was there and I was just reflecting on the fact, and it was great to be there to see the victory, but I was reflecting on the fact that this building is housing this moment, and these people are going to forever remember this moment in this building, and the building is the stage for it all to happen on. And it really made me feel proud. It brought a tear to my eye. And then also I still to this day when I go back to Pittsburgh and I visit family or friends, and my son, who was aged 9, I think, at the time when I was working on PNC Park for the Pirates, still to this day, when we drive by the stadium, he says, "There's Daddy's stadium," as if I'm the only one who designed it. Like, I mean, we had a huge team of architects, but still, it's so precious. And he thinks of it that way, and
Yeah.
it's special. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, my grandfather helped build the point, and I always like, oh yeah, yeah, I always say like, oh, that's the point. I mean, he also did some of the bridges because he was a crane operator for a Teamster, but
Oh, wow.
it would be in the trailer. He was the union rep when later on in life, but yeah, I always kind of think, oh, he created that, so but I mean, that's something to be proud of, though. I mean, it really is. Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Thank you. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So, so Bowen and Kelly are the same age, right? They're
Yeah.
both 26. They're both
Yeah.
26. Yeah. So, which is funny because, it's like, I think we met like when we were 25 or something like that. So,
That's probably right. Wow. That's right. Think about
crazy.
that. Wow.
Yeah. 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 That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. She's not getting married though, but yeah, I don't think. Um, so what would you like to say about the future of architecture? And I know people are like, that is such an enormous question.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe thinking for a while. Again, another good question. So first of all, I think, I'm very bullish on the profession. I think I feel like there's been a growing interest in general, or maybe the better word is a growing appreciation for good design, the value of good design. Think of like Target, for instance, Target, a store, but appreciating the value of architecture ever more so. And now you're seeing cities vie for the top architects in the world to come do a building in their city, to give that city clout, to bring people to the city. Architecture drives tourism.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I'm very bullish about that. I think that's a really good thing in general, but especially for our profession. I think the tools that we have today, really in the last 10 years as architects, with the softwares, systems that we can draw with now and create unbelievable shapes in 3D, these 3D visualization tools that we have available to us now have just busted wide open, I think, young architects' creativity, right? It's allowed you to think way beyond 4 walls and a roof, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to see how that's pushing the boundaries of our profession and what's possible as architecture. And even beyond that, have you seen this? Someone told me about this program. I loved it. It's on Netflix series called Abstract.
Yes, that's the only thing that I will binge watch, because but yeah, no, I think that's an excellent. I think it's an excellent series. Like, so every single one of them. Every single one. Yeah.
Right. I agree 100%. Yeah. So to see, and obviously it's all about creativity, right? That's the theme. That's the thread. And, there's one in particular, obviously there's Brooke Ingalls who's featured, and his pretty remarkable architect. But also I was blown away by Neri Oxman.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Looking at like biological architecture, growing
the
skins that we can apply in buildings organically.
Yeah, right? The silkworms that we're creating, everything, right?
Yeah.
I also liked. I thought that the way that she was collaborating with all of these different people from different fields, I thought was like very, was like something that I had never seen, being, kind of publicized, about that architecture can also work with these other fields in order to come up with like new and creative solutions to architectural problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really. Yeah. Just that was so inspiring, that show. And I think I think I heard someone once say, and I forget who's attributed to this quote, but that architecture is sort of the ultimate optimistic expression. And one other quote I found, I was looking to see who made that comment, because I always love that. It is. I mean, committing to building a building is ultimately an optimistic thing, that you're going to, it's that you believe that there's value in that building, and it's going to provide shelter or a place of work for the future. But I also found this interesting quote by Adolf Loos. I'm going to read it here. It says, this is about a house. The house has to please everyone, contrary to the work of art, which does not. The work is a private matter for the artist. The house is not. I thought that really summed up what I started with, that it's more than just a private endeavor.
Exactly.
So, yeah. I feel very blessed to have found, a profession that I love, to make a living and doing something that I love. It's truly in my bones. It's, a lot of us architects are like that. It's a sort of a love or hate kind of profession. And I'm sure you do what I do, like most architects do, even when we're on vacation. One of the things we're doing on vacation is going to look at buildings, going to tour buildings, taking pictures of buildings. People are like, get off it already. Just go to the beach, right? But we can't help it, right?
It's funny. It's funny because I mean, I might have recalled this before in something else. I don't think I have done it. But when I would go to and you were in Europe for a semester also. You were in Italy, but I was in Denmark, for a whole year. I mean, with Neil. But but I would, back then, right? You had film in a canister, right? And you put it in your camera.
Right.
And then because it was so expensive to develop, right, I would just send it back to my parents to develop, right? So
That's right.
they're opening up like all of these things, right? They're taking them in there. And then all they are just pictures of buildings. And my mom finally says to me, I like that you're really, seeing a lot of architecture, but could you maybe put yourself in front of one of the buildings?
That's so good.
So my daughter, she goes over and they when she did like the different testing for high school, they said that she should go into architecture, and she didn't even tell Steve and I. She didn't even tell us that the first thing so we said, so finally we're like, so what did they say that you were good for? I think is the way that I put it. And she said, well, the first thing was architecture, and I don't want that type of lifestyle. And so we were like, what? So she goes over to Spain for a semester, and she's like sending all these pictures, and then she's posting them on Facebook, and my mom is like seeing them. And I said, oh, see, I said, she's taking photographs of buildings too. And my mother said, and my mom's like glad that, I'm an architect or whatever, but she said like, oh, I thought that she was just taking them for you. And I'm like, no, I didn't tell her to take, I mean, she's the one, she like took all these pictures of Calatrava's building, like one of the buildings there. I mean, she did all that. I didn't tell her to like take all these photographs of these. She was just taking these amazing photographs of things. So, you never know, but
Sounds like it's a good
yeah. But people are always saying that if they don't have like a spouse or something, that like, oh, you're gonna drag your kids to see that. I said, no, my kids like love to see. I mean, that's kind of like what we've always done with them, and I mean, I still, we go to museums, we do that. I mean, they really like that. I mean, I don't feel like I'm kind of like pulling them along, and I think it's important that even if they don't go into architecture, that they have an appreciation of architecture. I mean, I'm sure that your kids, also have that appreciation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Was there anything else that you want to say?
No, I think that covers it. I think, I just, it's been a wonderful ride. If I had to retire tomorrow, I'd be completely content with what I've accomplished in my career. I'm sure I've got more juice in me, but no, I think it's it's always fun to talk about, and especially with other architects. And yeah, it's been a very life affirming profession for me, and hopefully for others. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're not done yet, Craig.
Yeah, I got a mortgage to pay off yet, so I got to keep going.
Exactly. I know people were always saying like, "Oh, when are you going to retire?" I'm like, "What, retire? Like, I'm never going to retire. I work for myself." I'm like,
yeah. Well, someone said, someone's asked me like, "Well, what do you want to do when you retire?" I'm like, "Well, I think I'd like to keep designing houses or buildings, but only just do it when I feel like doing it, and not have to feel like I got to do it 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day, 5 days a week." So no, I mean, I think I probably will still do that, dabble in it, moonlight as an architect, I guess maybe in retirement. But yeah, I don't know if I told you, by the way, that I'm sure you don't know this, but almost 2.5 years ago, I bought a condo in the city here in Philly, and a year after I bought it, there was a fire next door. And our condo was basically ruined with water and smoke from the fire next door, to the point where we had to completely gut it down to the studs and start over. And I'm just now 2.5 years later rebuilding it. There was so much. This is a very, 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 very long story, but the building was initially thought to be structurally unsound, and so we weren't allowed to go back into it for a while. And anyway, finally we're rebuilding, and so I'm having that unique opportunity as an architect to get to sort of design my own space, which I haven't ever done yet. And of course, I'm fighting the impulse of I want to have it to be perfect, and I want to have it be the coolest thing. But on an architect's budget, that's hard to do.
Yeah, we did this. We added on like 500 square feet, and it was more of like, oh, I have to add on space to a house that I never wanted to add on space to. So it was like, okay, we'll do it for this much, and so the boys and my brother and I were digging, the foundations.
Oh boy!
I mean, I still had a contractor do it, but yeah, that was an experience. That's like stuff. And then but then I had a contractor. I mean, that does a lot of projects for me. Did that part, and then so it's kind of piece of. And so then I get to the drywall, and somebody had said that they would do the drywall for us, but then because of COVID, like they couldn't do it, and I just said, oh, and then all these architects were saying, oh, you always have to do drywall once, and I'm like, you know what? But I want it to look really good the first time. Like, so I just said, okay, that's it. I'm gonna do it, and some of the thing. I mean, it just really could, right? Because we have red oak floors. And then I was just going to leave like the plywood on the floor, and then we got like this super cheap flooring to put on there. And I'm like, okay, we'll change it out later on. But it's a total architect's house. So, and anybody that, is like looking, any of the, people that are the nursing people that are coming in, they're like, oh, it'll look good when it's done, and I'm like, it's because there's no siding on the house right now, right? So there's just plywood around. The inspector for the city, because I'm a planning commissioner with the city of La Mesa, and she came out, she's like, like what she did, she's like, okay, you don't need any more, inspections until final. And I'm like, okay, but I need to do the electrical panel. I need to I need to put the siding on the house. And now, it's like we never know if we are going to get rain. So, so it's going to be an experience, Craig. And believe me, and we tiled, my friend and I tiled the bathroom. So I had to like tile it was crazy.
I think if I was 20 years younger, I'd be, game to try my own drywalling and my own tiling, but not anymore. I'm like, no, I'm going to pay someone to do that work.
Oh, I know. Believe me, I totally want. I mean, I had them do like most of it, but the rest of it is stuff. And hauling the contractor and his son-in-law were like, well, if you can haul the asphalt shingles up onto the roof in a bit. So it was like my brother and my sons and I hauling the.
For real?
Oh yeah. No, I'll show you photos of it. Yeah. No, it's crazy. But yeah, I definitely would. But it also gives you a whole, it gives you perspective
Level of
on like
respect.
how, yeah. I mean, I just learned, even though I've been doing houses for like over 30 years, I mean, doing your own house and kind of like seeing like, okay, and kind of seeing like why do we do like, or construction techniques, like why do we do it this way? Like this, there's like other ways that we could be doing this that we could be way more efficient than what we do. So I mean, it is a learning experience, but yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good.
Yeah.
And then it'll kill you that you can't buy like the tub that you want. I mean, there's no
Oh,
tub in the
no.
other one,
No.
but all of that stuff, it's just, yeah.
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 We're already living that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Craig. Well, I'll stop the recording. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. This was super fun. This is super.